Today we're going to be talking about your assignment, the analysis cask of Amontillado. So what you're going to do is either make a copy of this document or use the paper document that you were given. And we're going to use your annotations to guide us as we collect evidence and put it together in one spot, and also start to interpret the evidence that you underlined in your annotations. And finally, as a class, we're going to talk about some symbols in the cask of Amontillado that might be a little bit harder to determine. So, if you look at your paper, the first thing we are looking at is the topics that the story covers. And this is going to help you when you need to determine the theme of the story. So a topic is different from a theme in the sense that a theme is a statement, a complete sentence, but a topic is just a one word or a phrase that the story covers. So I want you to pause the video and take a minute to think about 3 or more, if you want, topics, so one-word topics that this story could have addressed. So go ahead and pause and do that. Okay, so hopefully you paused, and now that you unpaused, let's talk about the different topics in the story. Hopefully, one of them you could have chosen would be revenge, because revenge, is one of the major things. That's what it's all about. Montresor trying to get revenge on Fortunato. A second topic we could have addressed would maybe be guilt, because at the end of the story, there is some evidence that Montresor felt a little guilty about what he did. Maybe he brushed it off, but it was still there. And finally, another one you could have addressed would be like deceit or, trickery. The fact that Montresor went through such great lengths and was able to deceive Fortunato. We could even go for a fourth if we wanted to, and you could have talked about or decided maybe like arrogance, pride, or ego, however you want to phrase it, because we saw that's what led to Fortunato's downfall. So looking at all of these topics, later we can use these to make a theme. What is the author saying about revenge, about guilt, about trickery, about pride? And that's how we get to our theme. But before we do that, we're going to look at the evidence you guys found for characterization. So what you're going to do is you're going to describe each character, so looking back at your annotations, your decisions, and write a statement describing Montresor and a statement describing Fortunato. Then you are going to find one quote each to support that. So go back through your annotations and find a quote. However, you want to make sure that you format your quotes correctly. So what I mean by that is we need to give credit to where you got your source, your citation, your quotation with a citation. Because when you go to write about this story, if you use one of these quotes, you need to make sure that your reader understands that it's from the story and where it came from in the story. So when you do your quotes, you're going to put your quote, you're going to put in quotation marks. You're going to write it out, your quote, end it with quotes, and then you're going to put your citation. You always put parentheses, the author's last name, so in this case, Poe, and then finally the page number. So you could do page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the PDF, or use the page numbers of the PDF. But you're going to do the page numbers. You're going to put the end parentheses and your period. So you need to do that for every single quote that you use. So go ahead and pause the video and then complete your quotes. Hopefully you paused the video and you now have described each of the characters and included a quote. And if you're in class with your teacher, you can stop and discuss this if you would like, or keep moving on. So, the next thing we're gonna do is move on to tone and mood. So you guys want to choose a tone word, so how the author or the narrator, so how Montresor is feeling throughout this, and a mood word, how we the audience are supposed to feel. You guys should have been annotating for this in your annotations. You can use that chart I gave you, where you were given with the tone and mood words on it. So take a minute, pause the video, and write down both a tone, so the narrator is feeling, and a mood, how us, the reader, is supposed to feel while reading. Hopefully you paused the video, and now that you've unpaused, we'll just kind of discuss, you can discuss with your teacher, you pause again, what you guys came up with. And now that you've unpaused, let's look at some words you could have used. So for the tone, maybe you came up with like vengeful, maybe some people came up with a little, maybe vengeful, maybe, some people maybe came out with like proud because he's recounting what he did, maybe guilty. All those could work, but I think vengeful is really the strongest. And then the mood, what a lot of people might have come up with is maybe unsettling or suspense, how we're supposed to feel while reading it. Now that we have some tone and mood words, I want you guys to come up with 2 to 3 quotes for each. So you need 2 quotes for tone, 2 for mood. And make sure you cite them with the author's name and the page number. So again, they need to look like this. And then the page number. So go ahead and pause the video, collect your evidence, and then when you're ready, unpause. So hopefully you paused the video and collected your quotes. And if you want, your teacher, if you're in class with your teacher, you can pause again and discuss, and when you're ready, unpause. All right, so now we're on the back of your paper or the next page. Hopefully you've unpaused after discussing. And next what we're gonna talk about is symbols. And we're gonna do this together, as the symbols can be a little difficult to determine, especially with their words we're unfamiliar with. So this story contained a lot of symbols, and one of them being the cask of Amontillado. The author didn't just choose, this wine, this barrel of wine, to be the trap or choose it for no reason. He chose it for a specific reason. So the best way to figure out what something symbolizes is to think about how it was used in the story and to break it down. So if we break it down, cask, the word cask, we know it's a big barrel, but the author could have used, barrel. He could have used any word, but he used cask, which sounds a bit like casket, which is, the box or the, that people are buried in when they die. It's their final resting place. And wine, the Amontillado, is a fancy, expensive wine. Now, you guys might not know this since it's more of an adult thing, but people who are like experts at wine and can afford this type of wine usually are considered to be kind of like snobby or have a big ego because, you know, it's not an everyday wine. It's not something that everyone can get. And so this kind of goes with, you know, snobby, you know, rich people have this wine. It was also used as a trap. So we could explain then that, you know, because the wine was used as a trap, it is fancy and expensive, and cask sounds like casket. This could represent this could represent the death of Fortunato by trickery, because Fortunato died because of his ego. He felt like he was able to trash talk another person without any consequences, and instead there were consequences. So we can infer that this symbolizes Fortunato's death by trickery. You know, because, sorry about the typing, it doesn't let me move it till the end, because he is, or he thinks he's better than everyone else. Our next symbol would be the catacombs, which were, or the vaults that were under Montresor's house. So we again want to break this down. You know, think about what we know about them. Catacombs are under his house. They're dark and cold. They are where Fortunato was killed and hidden for 50 years. And we also know that Montresor chose this place, right? So looking at all these factors, we think about, like, this was Montresor's choice. It's under his house. It's hidden there. So, and just like Fortunato was hidden there. So if we think about what else was hidden in the story, is Montresor's dark side. Because, you know, no one knew this side of him. No one knew this. You know, even Fortunato saw him as someone who was harmless, despite the fact that he made fun of him. So, that gives us the indication that this symbolizes, just like it's under his house and it's dark, Montresor's dark side was hidden from everyone else. I mean, he got away with it for 50 years and no one suspected him. So he was able to keep this side of himself very hidden. So I'm going to give you guys a moment. You can pause the video and write this down if you still need to write. And when you're ready, you can unpause and continue. All right, so hopefully you paused the video to give yourself a chance to write. And now we're going to move on to our last symbol. So hopefully this symbol is easier to see on your paper. I know it's a little difficult on the copy that I scanned. But the story that we read, The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, the version we read was an adaptation. So the original story that Edgar Allan Poe wrote is a little too difficult for ninth grade students. So we read an adaptation version, an adapted version of the story. And unfortunately, they left a few things out that, some symbols that really added to the story. And so one of them I wanted to talk about, and this was Montresor's family coat of arms. Now, what a coat of arms is a family crest, is also called, but it symbolizes the family, kind of what they stand for. So the coat of arms, it equals, represents the family and what they value. So that's important to know, as this coat of arms, represents the family that Montresor comes from. His last name is Montresor. We don't know his first. There is a family motto down here. Can't really read it in this copy, but it is in Latin. But basically it translates to, no one wrongs me without consequences, or no one attacks me and gets away with it. So, basically, what that means, it kind of, goes with our story. No one attacks the Montresor family, gets away with it. Well, Fortunato attacked the Montresor family name, and Montresor did not let him get away with it. So, if we look at this image, which hopefully it's easier to see on your paper, it is a heel with a snake biting it. So the heel is crushing the snake, and then the snake comes and is biting it. So to think about this symbol, you kind of need to know a little bit more about what this universally stands for. If you've heard about the stories of Achilles, then you might already be able to guess the symbol. So Achilles is from Greek mythology. He was a warrior, and he was thought to be invincible. Nothing could hurt him, nothing could destroy him. And that was because his mother took him by his ankles and dipped him into this fountain. And this fountain was this water in this fountain was what made him invincible. But because she was holding him by his heel, the heel did not get touched by the water. So that was his one weakness. So in the stories of Achilles, he was shot in the ankle by an arrow and killed, because that was his one weak spot. That's kind of where we get the name for the Achilles tendon on the back of your ankle and foot area. If you're an athlete, you might have heard of this. You know that if you injure your Achilles tendon, you can't walk, you need surgery, and you're pretty much never the same. So the Achilles heel here shows us that, the heel means a weakness. And the heel is crushing the snake, or, attacking it. So, the foot is. So, we can see that someone with a weakness is attacking the foot. So this could represent Fortunato and his weaknesses in the story. So, if you might be able to guess then that the snake represents someone as well. From our symbolism notes and assignment, we did talk about, or you should have seen, that a snake tends to represent trickery and deceit. If I can spell today. And that symbol is also sort of a universal symbol coming from another story. So Achilles comes from, the heel comes from Greek mythology. Well, the snake comes from the Bible, in the sense that, the story of Adam and Eve. Some of you might be familiar, some of you not. But in the Bible, there's a story about Adam and Eve where the snake, which is supposed to be the devil, tricks Eve into eating fruit that they were told by God not to eat. So, of course, because of that story, the snake has now been associated with like trickery and deceit, and it's now kind of a universal symbol for that. And so in the story, we know that Montresor tricked Fortunato. So we know that the snake could be Montresor, and him biting the heel or the weaknesses is taking advantage of weaknesses to get revenge. And we can know that from the motto. So, if you need to continue to write, go ahead and pause the video and take a second to write. And then when you are done, you need to take a picture of both sides of your paper and turn it into the analysis Cask of Amontillado assignment, or turn in your Google Doc to the assignment. And when you are done, you can just end the video. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have learned a lot today.